Thank you for rejoining. So what we're going to do now is move into the panel discussion section of this presentation, and we're going to be primarily focused on the future. Nobody is going to write this down. This is completely off the record, other than it being recorded and live streamed. But, I've got the panelists' names and their LinkedIn profiles up there, so they haven't told me this, but absolutely feel free to connect with them. If they decline your invitation, then let me know. Not putting any pressure on you. So I'm going to, maybe what we could do is sort of go from left to right, and you guys can sort of introduce yourselves. This is what you do, your favorite color, shoe size, and then we'll go into the questions. So Stephanie, you want to start us off?
Sure. So Stephanie Hunter, I have responsibility at Walmart for our campus relations and talent outreach division. So my title is actually incorrect. I just recently transitioned from our SAMS as a senior manager run the SAMS business. Primarily, I've got a team that supports our kind of boots on the ground campus initiatives, and then I've got another team that supports our talent outreach, which is specialized recruiting as well as diversity recruiting.
Hi, my name is Melanie Diffie. I'm the career counselor at Arkansas Tech University. I've been working with students as a career coach in some role for about 8 years now, and I love it.
Good morning.
There's only one.
Well, still good morning. My name's Angie Scott. I work for Tyson Foods. Been with Tyson about 7 years, mostly on the college recruiting side of it. My current role is candidate branding and really owning and controlling the candidate experience from start to finish. So relatively new in that role, about 6-7 months. And again, excited to be here.
Good morning. My name is Larry Strickland. I am DHS Agency Human Resource Manager. Effective June 22nd, I will be the DHS Human Resource Administrator for the department. And I am responsible for recruiting and training.
And if anybody is really, really upset with my presence here, like Larry, he was the one who kind of reached out to me. So for better or for worse, you've got the crosshairs on it, my friend. So I'm going to start off. What I did is I asked the panelists if there was some questions that they thought the career service folks and the recruiters, the employers in the room would want to know. So I've got those questions, and I've also thrown in a few wild cards of my own just to make them uncomfortable. So Angie, I'm going to start with you. One of the things that I talked a little bit about, but decided that this is probably a better way of talking about it, I think it's more of a future thing than a past thing, are recruiting metrics. So how do you anticipate recruiting metrics changing with the technology changes that we're seeing from the standpoint of the employers?
And I'm going to speak to this again, kind of from that branding perspective, just a little bit. I think we all know as a whole, there's an area for us to improve when it comes to our metrics and our tracking and really showing our ROI and really showing our successes to the business or sometimes on campus, whatever your situation is. And I think, in the past, it's all been about timeline driven. It's been about quantity. I think the shift as the war on talent continues to grow and becomes a more competitive landscape is all going to be about quality. What's the experience? Are our candidates coming back to apply at Tyson Foods? And so for me, I think it's more about how engaged are our candidates? Are our candidates coming to us as referrals? Is it positive word of mouth that's bringing them to Tyson Foods or to Walmart or to Sam's? What's our retention rate? I think when I think about recruiting, one of our biggest flaws is our retention isn't there today. It's going to get harder. So I think we need to look at recruiting as a tool to retention. And if we do engagement, if we do retention well, there's a lot less pressure on us as recruiters. So, some things that we're looking at Tyson Foods is quality of hire. And what I mean by that is, what's your true feedback? If you're an applicant and we do a random sampling as you apply through our process, we're going to get some positive feedback from people that apply. We're going to get some negative feedback. If we do a survey of those that interview, we're going to get different feedback from those that didn't get an interview. For those that receive an offer and they decline us, why? For those that accept an offer, how do we resonate? How do we relate to you on a one-to-one basis? So I think from our perspective, we're really going to look at quality. What's our retention? What's our promotion rate, internal versus external? How long is it taking for a recent college grad to promote to manager status? So I think there's lots of different ways to think about metrics that are bigger than days to fill. Candidates to hire. It's also a matter of how are we engaging them, how are they promoting up, how are they influencing others, and how long are they staying?
Awesome. Also, I didn't make it clear, well, I didn't say it at all, so therefore it wasn't very clear at all. If anybody has anything that they want to chime in with, hey, Angie, you're completely off the mark, whatever, please. I mean, I'm definitely going to be looking for hands up, for wet paper rags being thrown at me, whatever. And same thing with the other panelists. Anybody want to add? Yes, ma'am.
Is that because of this group of students here, the millennials of the me, and that from our perspective, the university perspective, they don't want to apply for something for X, Y, Z. So is that where you're seeing too in the interview experience, if they don't feel that it was to their perception of what that company should be or what that experience should be like, they make a decision otherwise?
Do you want to take it and just sort of like repeat the question to make sure?
That was a big question. So I think part of the question there is the millennial focus and the me mentality, whether that's true or not. I might debate that. I think that's part of it. I think at least from Tyson and our strategy moving forward is going to be, we are going to build buckets. And we're going to have a bucket that you can relate to. And whether you're a recent college grad, whether you are an MBA from a top tier program with 5 years specifics, we're going to have something for you. If you want to live in Chicago, we can do that. If you want to live in Northwest Arkansas, we can do that. If you want to work in live operations out in the field, you can do that. You have to have that connection of, well, if Larry can do it, I can do it. He's just like me. He's gone through the same path. And so I think part of it is the generational focus, and we'll probably talk more on social media and how do we engage millennials a little bit differently. But I also think people just want to be heard. If you have a bad experience, you want to know where you dropped off in the process. Transparency is going to continue to be heightened, I think, as we look in the future, and people are going to want more instant feedback, like millennials do. And where did I go wrong? How can I improve? So I think that the generational focus is part of it.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, speaking of transparency, and I'm not going to throw in too much content here, it's your role, not mine, at this point, but there's an organization that was started a few years ago called the Talent Board. So it's a nonprofit started by a handful of folks in the recruiting industry. I was kind of involved with it for 2 or 3 years, and they have something called the Candidate Experience Awards. So Google that if you don't know what it is, but what they've basically done is they've asked every company, large, medium, small, domestic, international, whatever, to kind of open up, what's the expression, like open their kimono or whatever, and like show us what you do from a recruiting process, email all of your candidates, your applicants, different companies define those differently, and have them talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they provide customized feedback to every employer about what they're doing well, what they're not doing well, and it's all about the carrot and not at all about the stick. So if an employer says, hey, here's my information, and there's some like really serious flaws, like you're not acknowledging the receipt of a resume. You're never telling somebody if they're not hired. You just go radio silent on them. If you're really not treating candidates well, you're not going to get publicly shamed. If they'll point out to you, and then the next year you can come back and then you'll be recognized for being good. No organization that's ever been recognized has ever done everything well. And I think that's also the mark of a good organization, is to know that there are rooms for improvement. So speaking of room for improvement, Stephanie, you're on the firing line now.
Okay.
Wild card. She doesn't have this question, so we'll see how she thinks on her feet, or civic. So Google said recently that it's abandoning resumes. It's no longer going to ask candidates for resumes when they're applying. And instead, what they're going to be doing are a combination of assessments, some online stuff, and some other kinds of testing. What are your thoughts around that?
So we have already started to adopt that a bit, where we're using CRM. So as we go into different talent outreach initiatives or career networking, mixed meetings, et cetera, we're taking iPads, we're getting details that are kind of high level that we talked about a little bit, just the frontline information, and then we're basically targeting from that which ones we want to move forward with, and then we keep that communication and kind of channel going. We've actually worked with a couple of different groups, Codality, HackerRank, Prove It Systems, where we're integrating through our applicant tracking systems, a tech check of some sort. So whether that be in marketing from a brand perspective, on the programming side, we do like Java, C# language skills, etc. And then from that, we're able to narrow our funnel and start that intimate touch with our candidate.
Awesome.
Anyone else? A question. Just follow up on that. If working with senior level students who are getting ready to start applying for full-time jobs, in the past, well, we still do have senior level resumes. If we're going to start moving away from that, what would your recommendation be to work with the students on? You can't have them do something for Walmart, do something for Tyson, do something for 15 different companies.
So I should probably put this as a disclaimer. We still need a resume at some point in the life cycle, but just to be self-sufficient for us and to walk away with the right kind of targeted approach with that student body, then we'll ask you for your resume and allow you kind of at your own will through a link system to be able to supply it back to it. So a lot of our hiring community managers, et cetera, still very much need a resume to have clarity on background skills, experience. But I think one of the things that we're realizing is that we look at a couple things on a resume. To Stephen's point, it's not like the 10 years, and if we're looking from on the campus perspective, we literally look at the number of internships, languages that you speak, your GPA, and the school that you're at today. The rest of the information, frankly, we're able to assess in the networking, the kind of intimate touch again with the student body, and so a resume is less powerful, we feel.
So the SAP slide is something that you might be taking back to the office.
Yeah.
I just want to expand on that a little bit. One thing that I've seen here recently, it was actually a student from the U of A in Fayetteville, was my brand story. Here's what I stand for as a potential employer at your organization. It was a graduating senior. She was trying to land a position, probably at a number of different companies. She applied for a position with us, clicked on her hyperlink, took it to her LinkedIn. She had a professional video, professional background, really explaining who she was, what she brought to the table, what her skill sets were, which obviously I think is kind of what she's talking about as well, is really putting your highlights out there. But I had that. I had what she stood for. I understood her personal brand, and I didn't understand any of the other candidates because no one else provided it willingly. I think that's something that could be a big value add for students, that you work with career services.
So Angie, to clarify, because I hear this from students that they hear from from vendors, video resumes, that an online portfolio or video resume much more informative to an employer. So rather than providing an employer with a resume, you should record a 2-minute video about yourself. I'm guessing from the way you phrase it, you'd like to see both, but it's not an either or, but both would be great. Is that?
Yes, that's accurate. At Tyson Foods, we're going to have a resume at some point in the process anyway. I think a best practice is let's have a resume that differentiates ourselves. And what else can we do? Is it my brand story? Is it here's my skill sets? Here's my language capabilities? Or here's how I fit at your culture at Sam's, at Tyson Foods. To me, just the proactive nature already has me intrigued.
And for those folks who are advising students about video resumes, I would urge you to have a really real conversation with those students about whether they should do a video resume or not. I've seen some really awkward video resumes. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if you've had something that crossed your desk, it's like, I was really interested in her, but I don't want to be sharing, an office or working down even the hall with her. She's just way too awkward. And I think it's so unfair too, because you get this 2-minute video. It's not a comfortable situation unless you're an actor for anybody to be in. So people who can do them well, again, very complimentary, pretty good nature. Melanie. So Melanie is representing the career services. She's going to be our career services ringer on the panel. By the way, one thing that you might want to talk with her about, we do something called the Hidden Gem Index Awards. This year was the first year. So Google Hidden Gem Index Awards. And my guess is you'll probably find a reference to Arkansas Tech University, that it's sort of a recognition of schools where there are high quality students coming in based upon a variety of factors like SAT, high quality students coming out based upon factors like salary in the region, because what an engineer gets in Fayetteville is quite different from what that engineer would get in San Francisco. And then it's also based upon sort of the value add. Similar students going into other schools coming out, how do they do compared to, say, Arkansas Tech? And then the twist that we threw in there is, are employers actually able to hire these people? So if you are at Columbia University and 80% of you go to grad school, you're not going to rank as high in that Hidden Gem Index Awards, because Tyson is unlikely to be able to hire that student, even if they're perfectly for you, because they're going on to grad school and they're not looking to enter the labor market. So Arkansas Tech was one of our winners. So what partnership advances between career services and employers can we expect to see over the coming years?
One that I found kind of unique and interesting, did anybody in here go to AACE? Who went to AACE? I went to this really cool seminar at AACE just a week or so ago. And some of the larger employers have started doing campus ambassadors. I don't know if any of you all have heard about these programs, but it's kind of similar to sales ambassadors. We would see Microsoft sending a student out as a part-time student worker to demo products. Instead, I'm starting to see companies recruit part-time student workers from their internship population from the summertime, or potential applicants, and say, we're going to try you out as an on-campus employee first. We'll pay you for 10 hours a week and give you the opportunity to kind of spread the news and the visibility about our organization first, and in that way also learn about our brand, our culture, and develop a relationship with the campus career services office, different clubs and organizations on campus, different departments on campus, without necessarily spending the time and the resources it would take to send professionals over and over again across state lines. And I think that that's something that we're probably going to see more and more. We're also running into a lot of students discovering, similar to what you mentioned, that their resume isn't quite enough. As we're negotiating that relationship with employers, we're spending a lot more time at Tech having conversations with employers about what is it that you really need to know from students, so that we're coaching them not on the skill of resume writing or the skill of having a interview conversation, but the skill of knowing what it is that you want, knowing how to articulate what your future goals are, and also the skills of being able to do that elevator pitch we've been talking about for years, that all of a sudden is the center focus for having the beginning of a conversation about employment.
Cool. I think I saw a hand over here. Nope. Okay. Maybe it was Bueller and he stepped out. All right, Larry, you're up. Yeah, he's got that look of dread. After he introduced me that way, oh boy, there were like 1,000 places I would prefer to be right now, even at the office. Provide me with an example of one technology change that you're considering that's really cheap and that you think will produce really great results. This is for the cheapskates in the audience, or those who don't have unlimited resources, which is everybody.
Well, I think one of the things, first of all, let me say this, is that there was a law passed that set up a committee on retention for state government employees. And that committee they selected is about 8 people from different agencies and institutions. And so that committee is looking at retention, jobs, students that are coming out with certain degrees, pay, certifications, and you will see that because the committee is charged with providing the legislature and the governor with these recommendations by December of 2016. So first of all, if you have some ideas, send them to me. I'll be glad to present them to the committee. Next is, I think, and I'm going to talk from state government perspective. The technology for us, and we have, and I'll use my agency, we have 7,800 employees. 28% of those employees are eligible for retirement today. And that is across the sector of our department. There is 454 different job titles at our agency. The recruiting for that, as we look forward, we're going to do more YouTube video. We have hard-to-fill positions. We want the hiring official to do the video, talk about that job, talk about what they're looking for in that person, that, and we put those on YouTube. And I had a demonstration of that in Florida last year, and it is one of the ways that we can look at our hard-to-fill positions. The social media, you talked about this morning, we use that every day because it's an inexpensive way for us to promote our jobs. And we will hire, last year, I used last year's statistics, we hired over 1,200 people. Last year we received 155,000 applications. And so we're looking for those quality applicants. The other thing is that in state government, in the past, they have had, you could substitute 1 year of education, experience for education. One of the things is to step up the education level in state jobs. So that's what we're looking at.
Please, yeah, Stephanie wants to supplement.
So just from an employer perspective too, on with Walmart, there's just a couple of things that I would consider are cheap and low-hanging fruit for us this year. So we just hosted on June 1, we have 341 interns, prayers needed, that just joined us. And so all across the world, actually, because we host several that are coming in for an international academy. So we actually gave out 10. We did kind of this hackathon type social media deal before the interns actually arrived, and then the winners of that won GoPros. And then the GoPros, while they're there, they actually have kind of an authentic experience through their 10-week summer internship. And then the same concept around the brand ambassador. We're going to take some of those videos, put them on YouTube, kind of make snackable type imagery with them, etc. But it's per each of those interns, and it's kind of a day in the life. The other thing that we're doing, so for example, we've got different rotational programs that start post-graduation date. So an analytics rotational program that will start in August. We have 17 participants joining us. We're doing Google Meetups with them so that they get to see and touch and talk to their kind of cohort before they start. So we're trying to increase retention through a larger group setting versus it just a one-to-one, and then they start that process once they start from orientation. Given that Walmart is so large, from a presence, you're kind of small fish, big sea, and so we're trying to do that from a Google Meetup perspective as a technology forum, and it's been little to nothing to be able to do that, and it's a bit more organic in the way of working.
Anybody using Facebook groups? So you can, if you've got 330, 10, whatever, interns, new hires, you can set up a group, or better yet, even encourage one of them to, so that you're not part of the conversation, and then they can communicate with each other. Housing, when are you getting there? Who do you know? How do I find an apartment? Whatever. And some of it can be kind of, pardon my French, but a bitch session. And that's why I think you probably want to stay out of that. Let them vent in a closed, secure kind of place, and rather than kind of internalizing that, then you find you just can't convert them.
So we do have a couple of interns that have already done that, and it's not really powered or sponsored by Walmart. Our legal department looked away from that as an option for us, just because we couldn't control what they were saying, messaging, and what that kind of impression, I guess, for their friends and different groups it would make. We have one from a Walmart careers perspective, and we have an intern or university tab take in, but it's a bit more controlled. I have my own opinion on that. I think it should be a bit more of a kind of an open, transparent forum, but our legal partners have shied away from that.
Yeah, but yes, ma'am.
I used to oversee a student organization for the Career Center called Delta Epsilon Iota. Some of you might know about that. It's an honor society. And what I found with my executive board is we actually did a lot of our communication through the GroupMe app. And a lot of students already have that app. They're very comfortable with it. And a lot of times students don't want to come to the office. They don't want to make an appointment, but they feel comfortable talking to you on the app. So a lot of times if there was an event or if we had a meeting, that my phone would be buzzing. There would be, what am I supposed to bring again? Are we supposed to wear our polos today? And so it's very informal, but it creates a comfortable platform for them to communicate.
And what was the name of the app again?
GroupMe.
GroupMe. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of the, I think the career, the college's admissions departments, maybe they're turning a blind eye to it, maybe they're actively encouraging it, but there are definitely a lot of groups that the students will join as they're entering the school. I haven't seen too many career service offices create or encourage Facebook groups for students who are exiting, whether it's, say, after their junior year and going on to internships or whatever, but I think the larger the school, the more groups you'd want. You don't want to have 3,000 people in a group. But if there are dozens, maybe a couple hundred, I think they can function well. But if you've got students who are, say, going to Los Angeles for, between their junior and senior year, think about creating a group for them so that they can stay in touch with each other, they can communicate with each other. An organization, well, like what does Enterprise hire, like 10,000 people a year or something like that? I could see an organization like that having a group in each city, so they could have a Denver group for new hires. Yes.
I don't know that this is done exceptionally well, but on LinkedIn, for sorority alumni associations or, different alumni groups for companies you've worked in, I think if those could be worked in a better way to make them more professional rather than I'm moving to DC and I need a roommate, finding those niches where those students already are, and then encouraging that professional social media website would be really helpful. But the problem that we find is when speaking to students, they're like, what's LinkedIn? Or I created one 4 years ago, but I don't really know the password. And so any information that the recruiters could give on that, of how they engage with those students and kind of breaking that barrier of the lack of knowledge, that would be helpful. Of how can we utilize those groups to get them to you? What are the best way? It would be great for prominent alumni who work for those companies to say, hey, I work here, and post in these groups. But if the students aren't there, then how do you get that disseminated?
Yeah, LinkedIn groups I think are a great idea, and I agree with you. There's a little bit of a struggle there because pretty clearly the vast majority of students are going to be way more comfortable, way more active on Facebook than they will be on LinkedIn. But if they do have a group on LinkedIn, whether the employer supports that, creates that, turns a blind eye to it, career services, same thing, or not, I think simply because you're on LinkedIn, you're more likely to be professional in how you're interacting than on Facebook. You know, you're not going to post a photo of somebody like all marked up with a Sharpie on LinkedIn as likely as you would be on Facebook. All right, I spoke a couple minutes ago about candidate experience, Angie. What technology changes are you seeing in the university relations space that you think is going to will result in a better candidate experience?
All right, so I guess my first thought here is it's not necessarily a technology, but at Tyson we have implemented a young professionals business resource group, and we are coupling that with our ambassador program. And so what we're doing is we want people to identify and say, I want to be engaged and I want to be going back to my alma mater, and it is essentially free to us. So while it's not a technology, I think just getting that group of like-minded, like-interested people together, and then pulling students that they know are going to be successful within the environment. I think that's really important. Another thing we're looking at in the collegiate space, that is a technology, and I realize it might not be for everyone, but it is actually an onboarding tool as opposed to a recruitment tool. It's a program called Expand, and it is a way to essentially set up a community for our incoming interns to create their own social network, where we can do all of their onboarding pre-arrival within the system. We can track all of their performance surveys, their surveys at the end of the summer. What did we do well? Which of our intern events do we need to adjust to fit their needs? It's a way to have that connectivity. It also pulls from LinkedIn, so they'll get to know who their manager is, who are my peers, who am I going to be working with, and they come in with more than just a baseline understanding. They get who we are, they understand the tasks that they're going to be assigned, they know what their goals look like, they have the projects that are assigned to them prior to arrival, they know who they're working with, they've already built relationships, whether that's from students from the same school or from students across the country. So again, you build that like-me experience. It's a safe environment, it's controlled, it's essentially owned by Tyson or Walmart, whoever the case may be. And that's a tool that while we didn't implement this year, I fully expect us to next year.
And that's called Expand?
Expand.
Cool. So flip side of candidate experience. Stephanie, what technology changes do you see occurring that will improve the recruiter experience?
So a couple of things that we've done, because we feel like we're just like most employers are inundated with applicants that are streaming in, leveraging through Simplicity and then working with our IT department, we've actually built our own app in-house so that we can actually leverage the app to put controls around invitations, timing, placements, plannings, et cetera, across all the different footprint and focus schools that we'll be going to. We typically, from a sponsorship perspective, everything that we do from a talent outreach diversity channel, so Thurgood Marshall or Alpha, NABA, we actually work with them as part of our sponsorship to get a linkage to their app as well so that ours can be powered through theirs, but it comes behind it. So that we can actually have a little bit more of a closer channel of touch to the student body that we want to attract while there. So we have this kind of pre, during, and post campaign model that we've got, and the application process is kind of that living item that stays with them. Once they go through our app and they're able to see like where a recruiter will be, or potentially, you know, a time to come visit us at Mix and Mingle, or a certain dinner that we'll be sponsoring, all of that is kind of a bump to them, and they can opt in or opt out. From that, then we actually push them on through Avature, and then Avature today, we're actually exploring others, but it's our CRM, our relationship management tool. And from that, we're able to send levels of different communication that aren't your generic applicant tracking system communication. So the recruiters are actually filling in details related to the particulars of when they met that candidate, you know, closer touch, et cetera. So those are things that are kind of self-serving us from an automated standpoint as a recruiter, but it also increases the kind of brand and impression that it makes from a candidate experience as well.
Well, so it sounds like you don't look at the improving the recruiter experience as being inconsistent with the improving the candidate experience, that the two, you can do the same, the two should be married, right? It's, yeah, and I definitely hear both sides of that. I'll hear some employers say, well, if we improve the candidate experience, that's going to take so much more time on our end, but I don't think it necessarily has to, and it sounds like that's the path you're going down, looking for win-win.
Yeah.
Is your partnership with Simplicity, so is that tied for the schools that are using Naceland, is that integrated with them, so does it also improve what's called the career service experience?
Yeah, so we're looking to do that. Today, it's been a little bit more manual, so if we've got, certain levels of posting through Simplicity, we're actually taking the targeted candidates and we're inviting them to bring them into our app. But we are working to get a little bit more of a closer integration so that when our posting actually goes up and it's a Walmart posting, as you click to it, or if you see us on your campus, then that's when it would actually prompt you to go into the actual application system. Another thing, just from a recruiter kind of effectiveness and recruiter experience, again, because we're inundated, anything that we can do to help us narrow down our pool, and one of the things that we've implemented is an integration with Connexa, which is our applicant tracking system, where immediately upon hire, as you meet the minimum qualifications, you're triggered an assessment, and then only those that have a threshold will go into our manager review. So anything that we can do on the front end, candidate alignment forms, tech assessments, and so that's what we're trying to get our career service groups and our professors to, be mindful of. Our resume is one thing, being able to have cognitive ability, analytical thinking skill, tech screening process and be prepped and ready for that, because all of that from a Walmart perspective is being heavily integrated today.
Maybe one more.
Yeah. Questions, thoughts? Okay, last one. This is going to go to Melanie. Are your technology changes for your office being driven more by a desire to serve the students effectively or efficiently? And by effective, I mean sort of things like helping them find a job. Efficiently, things like saving money, not having to hire staff. There's that tension.
Is it fair to say both?
It's fair to say both, but if you say both, then you're going to have to tell me how.
I'll have to address both. So from an effectiveness standpoint, we have a student population that pulls a lot from both on-campus, commuters, adult learners, online students, and so we have to make sure that we are using resources that are going to actually reach those populations. So a lot of our technology or the things that we're developing now, we're working on trying, Brandon has piloted making sure that we have a completely virtual career center online so that students who may never set foot on our campus actually have the capacity to receive all of the same services. That's essential for us. From an efficiency standpoint, we are a state school with limited funding. And of course, if we can avoid extra budgetary items, we're going to do that as well. We have done some experimenting in the last year or so of using the resources that are already on campus in other departments. As far as technology goes, instead of trying to buy new software, for those of you that use Blackboard, for instance, on campus, we have started recording videos through Integrity in the Blackboard system. And even hosted a few webinars that way. It's a little clunky, but it saves us money, and we can still provide that resource in a way that works for the students who need it on a different platform. We're also using YouTube a little bit for that. Integrity gives us the ability to upload videos. So if a student cannot attend an event, we're working on trying to make sure that there's a recording for them to watch later. And while some of those are not particularly innovative, it's important that we make sure that they're accessible.
And speaking of YouTube, for whether it's career service or employer, if you're trying to reach a large number of people through screen share, to do a PowerPoint, or even if it's a video type of a call, have a look at Google Hangout on here. It's free. I don't remember what year it is, but it's probably been 5-6 years. But the White House uses that platform to do kind of like the fireside chats. So, when Obama, I think it's once a month, once a quarter or something, he'll come on and like millions of people can watch him speak all at once, and they don't have any special setup. So if it works at millions in scale, it can certainly work for hundreds. And then we use it for our webinars. And one of the really nice things about Google Hangout on Air too is that the video that you're shooting, then you can set it up so that it automatically goes to your YouTube channel. And so you don't even have to start getting a file and then uploading it to YouTube. It's all very seamless. Or you can set it up to be private so that only certain people, like 340 interns, you probably don't want the world to know what you're telling your 340 interns, but you can make it private just for them. So thank you very much, Stephanie, Melanie, Angie, and Larry. You guys are great.
Thank you, Steve, for facilitating the discussion. We appreciate it. Lunch is going to be when you walk out the back door, just turn to the right, and the room is right next door to us. We'll convene back in here at 12:30, and we'll start our presentation from the University of Arkansas.